I'll be upfront with you, Jen. Small and medium businesses, that's what they want. They just want to be told what to do. And equally important with that is what's good enough, because they don't have unlimited resources.
Hello, and welcome to Practical Cybersecurity, a podcast for business leaders and cybersecurity professionals in the small and medium business space. My name is Jen Stone. I'm a principal security analyst at Security Metrics. Today's topic is Practical Cybersecurity Resources for SMBs. I am delighted to have Curt Dukes from the Center for Internet Security with me today. Curt, thank you so much for being willing to come on and talk to us today about the CIS. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, how you came to work at the Center for Internet Security?
At the ripe old age of 17, I enlisted in the United States Air Force, spent 5 years in the Air Force, got the GI Bill, and with that, I was able to go to the University of Florida, go Gators, and got my undergraduate in computer science. And then from there, I wanted to go back into public service. And so I signed on with the National Security Agency, or as some people like to say, no such agency. And so signed on with the NSA and thought I'd only be there for 3 to 5 years. Well, 30 plus years later, I finally said, I've had enough. That was a career. And then from there, I went on to Center for Internet Security. And I've actually been here for 8 years now at the Center for Internet Security.
Can you maybe tell us a little bit about your role at CIS? Like, what's a day-to-day thing look like for you?
Yeah, so I have the title of Executive Vice President and General Manager for what we call Security Best Practices. You know, you could say, well, what the heck is Security Best Practices? Well, it's really about creating and promulgating cybersecurity best practice guidance. And so we do that in 2 ways. One is the CIS benchmarks, which if you think about it, it's a set of configuration recommendations for the major operating systems. So think Windows 11, Windows Server, any of the Linux distributions, any of the network devices. Cisco or Juniper has Junos for that. And our other product is the CIS Critical Security Controls, which is, if you think about cybersecurity, you need a framework. Most folks are familiar with NIST and the cybersecurity framework. Well, what CIS has done is said, hey, you know, we like that set of controls and underlying safeguards, but what we want to do is actually prioritize the actions that we want individuals or individual organizations to take. And so with that, you know, we actually script it out for them. We have 3 implementation groups. So implementation group 1 is where you get started. And then you actually follow, and each one of those controls and underlying safeguards, we want you to actually implement that and measure yourself against it.
So the benchmarks and the security controls are what I'm most familiar with. And with our new focus on giving small and medium businesses actionable, practical advice, that's why I was really excited to talk to you about CIS, because I think that's what that offers. But also, I get the feeling that the Center for Internet Security might have a broader mission than benchmarks and the security controls.
Yep, you're 100% right. So the beauty of this little small, as I like to say, scruffy nonprofit headquartered in upstate New York is the fact that we have an ISAC, the Information Sharing Analysis Center. So that's really, if you will, think about it as our operational arm. And so as part of that ISAC, we run a number of sensors within the SLTT community. What that gives us is actual threat data. And so, I mean, and over the number of years that we've been operating the ISAC, supporting the SLTT community, we've amassed a very large amount of threat data. And so what we do as part of that is we actually look at, you know, new and emerging threats. And yes, there are new and emerging threats, but there's also a lot of just, you know, threats that we've seen year in and year out, you know, and you can't be on any speaking engagement, not mention ransomware, right? And there's not a lot of unique about, from my lens, ransomware. They're still exploiting known vulnerabilities for which there's a patch already available to them. But so that threat data actually informs our cybersecurity best practices.
Okay. So let's imagine that I am in a small business or a medium business, and I know that I need to have cybersecurity. I need to have some sort of a framework. I need to have something in place to protect against these threats. It's hard on, especially small businesses. The leaders in these business leaders have to be, really a jack of all trades. They have to learn so much. And the cybersecurity world, from working with a lot of groups, this can be one of the most intimidating because it's very specific knowledge, it's very technical knowledge, and a lot of times they don't know where to start. Where do I start in implementing a cybersecurity program? So if they go to CIS, how do they start?
Start with the CIS critical security controls, right? And so that is your cybersecurity framework. I mean, you could also use NIST CSF or cybersecurity framework. You could use the International Standards Organization has another framework. It's 27001 for that. But you come to CIS, it's available for free. It's a download. And within that, we typically have how-to guides, how to start using and implementing the critical security controls. We would tell you to start with what we call, implementation group 1. We have a free tool called the Control Self-Assessment Tool. And you basically, it's online. It's a SaaS-based application. You would come to the CIS website, and you could register for a free account. You could start assessing yourself against that. So if you're some small business, let's say Acme Incorporated, and you don't know where to start, you could go on to our collaboration platform called Workbench. And just post a question, say, hey, I'm new to CIS. I really want to start using implementation group 1 of the controls. What do I do? And I can tell you factually, you'll get more people responding to you that are non-CIS employees than are CIS employees. Not that we don't want to respond, but we don't have to. I mean, that community now actually has grown to a sufficient level that folks just want to help you, because at one point in their journey to good cybersecurity best practices, they were at that same spot, and they actually said, where do I start? So start with the CIS critical security controls, start with implementation group 1 of those controls, use our free tool called CSAT, and if you have any questions, use Workbench, which is that collaboration platform. That's, again, a free resource available to you.
And that's terrific. I really like that about CIS, as has an easier entry point, especially for smaller, medium businesses. One of the things that I get asked a lot is, how do I prioritize putting in new security controls? And it sounds like you've already done that by having different implementation groups, and created that approach of you already know as a first priority, here's a starting place.
That's exactly right. My job is to make your life just a little bit easier when it comes to cybersecurity. I can't make your life easier for everything, but at least in cybersecurity, I can. And so we want to remove certain questions you may have and just say, here, just do this. And I'll be upfront with you, Jen. Organizations, small and medium businesses, that's what they want. They just want to be told what to do. And equally important with that is what's good enough, because they don't have unlimited resources. And so that's exactly right. We prioritize the actions that we want you to take to be able to measure yourself against a cybersecurity framework, in this case, the CIS critical security controls in that regard. And I'll go one step further. This concept, it's a legal term called the standard of reasonableness, right? And so, whether we like it or not, things happen, and say you suffer through a cyber incident, right? Typically, you'll probably get hauled into a court. Someone's going to say there's liability, and you want to at least be able to say, well, what I did was reasonable for the resources I had available to me. So we've come out with a thought piece around reasonable cybersecurity. And it's based on the controls. So if you're implementing the controls in implementation group 1, and you're actually measuring yourself against that, should you suffer a cyber intrusion, you can at least show to the court, these are the actions I had done and what I thought was reasonable given the resources I had available to me. And so that to me is a very important concept. And I think what we're finding is a number of states are actually starting to adopt or understand reasonableness and in the context of reasonable cybersecurity.
So let's say we have a company that they've done implementation group 1, they're growing, they feel like they have more budget. How difficult is it? And I'm assuming that there is an implementation group 2 and beyond, but how difficult is it to move from group 1 to the next step?
Don't even think about it. Just do implementation group 1 first. Then we'd say you need to do a risk assessment. And yes, CIS offers a free risk assessment methodology, CIS RAM, as part of it's based on the control. So, you can then, and what that would do for you is it would identify gaps you may have in your cybersecurity program based on, threats that are maybe specific to a certain industry vertical, that may be based on, resources that you have available. But, do the risk assessment. And then from that will tell you which of implementation group controls that and underlying safeguards that you need to then start prioritizing as part of your overall cybersecurity program. Or you may choose after implementation group 1, given the resources you have available, that I'm actually feel pretty good about this. And then any other risk I may have, I may actually cover that using cyber insurance, having a cyber insurance policy. So that's another means for you to kind of buy down some of that risk through an insurance policy. And what you would do to the underwriter is just demonstrate, here's my cybersecurity program. Here's how I've implemented implementation group 1. These are the additional risks that I'd like to be covered through a policy. And that actually is music to insurers' ears because they're already getting proof that you're proactive and you actually care about your business and care about, protecting the business as well as any personally identifiable information you may be retaining on behalf of a customer or a member.
Sure. Yeah.
The other piece I'll talk about very briefly is the cost of cyber defense. Right. So every small and medium business really wants to understand, well, just how much of this, this cybersecurity stuff, how much is that actually going to cost me? Because it's the cost to the company. They gotta pay for it. And so we came up with the cost of cyber defense, and we looked at it from 3 different use cases. One use case was, that you provide all the IT and support yourself. So it's on-premise, and you're managing the servers, you're managing the endpoints, you're setting up accounts and things of that nature. And we defined here's a cost to actually implement IG1 of that. The second use case was, hey, this is kind of hard for me. I'm a small business, so I'm simply just going to outsource it. So I'm going to outsource this to a managed service provider. Right, very, very typical in small and medium businesses. And so what we did is said, in order for that managed service provider to implement IG1 of the critical security controls, we believe it would cost them about this much. And then the third use case is that, hey, I don't want to have to deal with either one of those. I'm just going to stick everything in the cloud and let that cloud service provider manage it on my behalf. And so that's the third cost, that we have in this on the cost of cyber defense for that. But within that paper, we actually call out, if you will, 10 tool categories, right? And so these are tools. I wanted to list actual vendor names because that's what most individuals and organizations are familiar with, right? But it was easier just to break it out by tool category. At some point in the future, we may actually list at least vendor products. We won't say it's good, better, best. We'll just say these are vendor products that fit within that tool category. But this would help you then say, okay, I've already got 3 of those tools. In order for me to fully implement IG1, then I'm going to need to pick up a couple more of those. Now, the one difficulty in that is that you may not need all 10 tools. some of these vendors' products do multiple things. So it may be that one vendor product gets you, 3 or 4 of the tool categories in and of itself. So you may not need to have to own and manage all 10 tools, but we actually try to tie the controls and like safeguards with the actual tool technology that you need to understand in order to implement that program.
I think that at this point, there's probably a lot of people who are thinking, I want to learn more. I want to get started. Where do we send people so that they can find your CIS resources and jump in?
Yeah, so we have a website, cisecurity.org. Please do go visit. We break out for the ISAC, the Information Sharing Analysis Center, and we also have what we call security best practices. So,
well, this has been great. I really appreciate all of this. I learned things that I didn't know about CIS today, so I appreciate your time and thanks very much for sharing with this.
You bet. Jen, it's been a pleasure meeting with you and having a good discussion with you.